I want to welcome everyone to the Clarence PTO Meet the Candidate Night. Tonight's forum is being moderated by members of the Clarence Center, Harris Hill, Ledgeview, and middle school PTOs. This year we have 4 candidates vying for 2 Board of Education seats. Our format for this evening is as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. We have passed out 3x5 index cards. You may write 1 question on the card, and we will collect all cards and randomly draw 10 questions to ask our candidates tonight. Please only submit 1 card question per person. Questions must be applicable to all candidates, and please pass questions to the aisle for collection. As each question is blindly pulled out, we will screen it to make sure it isn't aimed as a personal attack at a particular candidate, and those questions, if any, will be shown to the candidates after the meeting. The same process will be followed for repeat questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer the question. The timekeeper will hold up a card when 30 seconds remains to let the candidate know when time is almost up. The timekeeper will hold up a card when your allotted time is over. We will adhere strictly to the time frame that has been developed. Question number 1 will start with Mr. Fuchs. Question 2 will start with Mr. Kirksick, and so on. Finally, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Just prior to tonight's start, candidates drew numbers to determine seating and question order. Opening statements will begin with Mr. Fuchs and end with Mr. Lombardo. Closing statements will be in reverse order and will begin with Mr. Lombardo and end with Mr. Fuchs. This is a Meet the Candidate forum and not a debate, and as such, answers must be addressed to the audience. There is to be no back and forth between candidates or between candidates and the audience. Additionally, we ask the audience to hold any applause until the last closing statement. Tonight, our candidates are Michael Fuchs, Jacob Kirksick, Dennis Priori, and Joe Lombardo. Oh, we need the cards. Oh, opening statements. Go ahead.
Hopefully everybody can hear me. I would like to begin by thanking the collective PTOs for coordinating tonight's event. With the disbanding of the local chapter of the League of Women's Voters a few years back, you've risen to the occasion to offer the only forum for all the candidates to come together and address the community as a whole. I sit here before you tonight seeking a second term on the Board of Education. As a 16-year resident of this great town, a homeowner, a taxpayer, a parent of 2 school-aged children, I am extremely proud of being part of this community. In short, I, like you, have a vested interest in ensuring our community continues to thrive and retain its place as one of the premier communities in Western New York. I believe at the heart of this community is our schools. Over the last 3 years, I've had the opportunity to get to know and work with countless members of the community and learn what it means to serve on the Board of Education. From serving on the Citizens Advisory Task Force, to touring our 6 schools and meeting with our principals and staff, to spending a day with the Special Education Department. I've come to appreciate firsthand the complexities that exist in running a school board and a school system. While every spring the budget comes to the focal point of discussion, this is but one of many responsibilities a trustee has. Trustees must be willing to work with a cross-section of stakeholders and make difficult decisions that balance the need of the entire community. Board membership today requires trustees to balance a complex maze of education law, state education department mandates, and New York state legislation in order to position the Clarence Central School District to deliver on its mission of producing independent lifelong learners. As Director of Finance at Rich Products, I bring a background of fiscal management and strategic planning. With fiscal oversight on $1.5 billion of annual spending, I'm accustomed to dealing with the complexities of budgets and operational constraints. Rest assured that while I will always be mindful of every tax dollar spent, controlling costs while destroying the fabric of what makes our school system and community great is not an option. We must work together to ensure that this does not happen. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jacob Kirksick. New resident of Clarence, many of you know. Tonight is about decisions. Decisions we all make, decisions the board members make from time to time, decisions that each of you make in terms of who you select to be your representative as a board member for your school district. As a high school student myself, I had the great pleasure of growing up in New Delhi, India, and attended the premier #1 rated international high school in the world. Yet, the thousands and thousands and millions of dollars that were spent on my high school education did not prepare me to get a college education. As a young college student, I was a miss. Life rolled on. I pursued business endeavors rather than pursuing a further college education in the beginning. That doesn't go so well. Many of our students today face these same dilemmas. They are in high school, they aren't sure where they're going. Are we preparing them? Fortunately for me, at the age of 32, I was able to return to college. I graduated in the top of my class. I scored perfect on nearly every test, every assignment, accomplishing a complete 4-year program in 2 years and 9 months. As a board member, what I worry most about would be, are we putting programs, curriculums, and things in place that are going to ensure that our college students, that our future college students will succeed? I bring something to the table that maybe some others may not, which is really looking at the data, really looking at what it is that benefits our students and what it is that benefits the rest of the community or the other stakeholders. And as a board member, my key philosophy is if it doesn't actually benefit the student directly, then it should not be included in our education system.
Thank you, PTO, for bringing on this event tonight. Thank you, community, for being here. I served 36 years in education as a teacher and administrator in city, suburban, and rural Western New York school districts. My wife and I moved to Clarence 16 years ago, primarily due to the great school system. Our 2 daughters matriculated through Sheridan Hill, Clarence Middle School, and the high school. We feel fortunate that they were exposed to a variety of high academic courses and extracurricular activities. If elected, I will work to ensure that those opportunities are preserved for many years to come, and I have a 6-point plan to ensure all Clarence residents have the same opportunity. I will, 1, work to eliminate unfunded state mandates. 2, fight to eliminate the gap elimination adjustment. 3, examine testing at all grade levels. 4, work with the district to establish long-range budget planning. 5, implement creative ways to be more efficient. And 6, reach out to all constituents to work together to maintain and grow one of the best school districts in Western New York and New York State. I have attended nearly every school board meeting over the past 2 years, and I am supporting the budget that was passed by our school board because it is a sound, responsible one, and it begins to restore some of the devastating cuts that our district endured over the last 6 years. I am also supporting the bus purchase proposition because it is a smart and common sense approach to maintain buses that are safe for our children. I understand balancing the needs of creating opportunities for our children while balancing the needs of our taxpayers, because I am a taxpayer. As you listen to what the 4 of us have to say, I want you to ask yourself, are they saying fears or facts? I choose to deal in facts. I volunteer at many school, church, and community activities. I have the time and energy to devote to the Clarence School Board. I would be honored to have your vote next Tuesday because great schools matter.
My name is Joseph Lombardo. I attended Clarence Center Elementary and graduated from the high school in 2007. I've lived in Clarence for 24 years, the longest of all the candidates. My plans are to remain in the town, but I am concerned about the future of our schools, the budget, and the tax burden. We are on an unsustainable path. I wish that the people who continue to advocate for more taxes would instead stop and ask, where is all the money going? New York State has some of the highest school taxes in the country. It's not right that the district continues to cut opportunities for students as the taxes increase and enrollment drops. It's not right that in the tax capital of the country, people have to go out and raise funds for clubs, sports, and music. This is serious dysfunction. Some say that because the 9.8% increase didn't pass in 2013, the schools are in ruins. The reality is that if this budget passes, the tax levy will have increased over 10% in just 3 years. Clearly, we are still at a point where the tax increases become the norm just to barely hang on to what we have. We can't have that. Administrators and board members hold courses hostage in order to pass rising budgets. They refuse to go after the real issues, personnel costs. People are forced to give up their homes, circle of friends, and things they have worked hardest for because they can't afford to pay the taxes when they retire. The response we get from some employees of the district and advocates of more taxes is, well, if you don't like it, move. That response sickens me, and that's why I'm here.
Is the questions collected?
If everyone can pass their questions to the aisle, please. Question number 1 is going to start with Mr. Fuchs. Will you support the ongoing restoration of teacher positions that have been cut in order to restore programs and decrease class sizes?
A simple answer is yes. I think, as we've proven this year, opportunistically looking at how the state aid comes back, lobbying New York State for the elimination or complete elimination, the gap elimination adjustment, the improvement in the stock market that has resulted in the pension costs dropping over the last few years. I think we have opportunities over the near future to add back class room teachers, support staff, and continue to work the class sizes down. Thank you.
Mr. Kirks, do you want me to repeat the question?
No. I'm good. So currently restoring all 11 positions, no, I would not support them. In reading through 10 years worth of reports to the community, these are the highlights. In 2009, increase due primarily to employee contractual expenses. 2011, that includes an 18% increase in pension costs. These are contractual and mandated expenses. 2012, the retirement system increases based on total payroll and among the largest in recorded history. 2012, healthcare costs are the second fastest and rising variable in the budget. 2013, the two biggest cost drivers to the budget are pensions and healthcare. 2013, the retirement system increases are the largest in recorded history. 2014, retirement system contribution rates are not controlled by the school district. Personnel costs, for the most part, are contractual and not controlled by us. Once you enter into the agreement, you can't get out of it without causing severe pain to programs and other things. We have already made those cuts. Let's stick to the plan that was created a few years back. Follow the course. Enrollments are going to go down. Class sizes are going to come down. Now you ask about all 11 positions. I would not support all 11. There are 2 positions I would support. 1, being special needs education, and 2, being music. Sports programs are still in full effect. The music program has suffered, and that is what I will support.
It's part of a bigger issue, and I support the budget. And as I look at the 11 positions, there's no fluff here. We have a special ed teacher mandated by state law, 2 ELA teachers, 2 math teachers, an elementary teacher, a tech ed teacher, a business teacher, a music teacher, and 2 librarians so that our elementary kids don't have to go to a library that's not staffed. We cut 114 positions over the last 6 years, and the reason we did that is because New York State balanced their budget on your backs by taking away $18 million, and I'm going to talk a lot tonight about the gap elimination adjustment. It's unfair, especially in a year when the state has a $6 billion windfall with settlements, and so this is part of getting back about 10% of the cuts that we've made over the last years. We need to build back our system because our kids are sitting in study halls when they should be into electives and AP courses.
Well, in the face of a declining enrollment that's projected to drop nearly 25% in the next 10 years, I can't understand why we would have to bring back more positions in order to most likely cut them. There's also way too many variables to bring back positions right now. Our budgets are so tight. The pension fund received 23% return on investment this year, which is an incredible amount, and we can't always bank on that in order to balance the budget. I could support bringing positions back if the union contract was revised so that it doesn't create such a burden on the taxpayers and the budget. We've seen what the personnel costs due to the budget. Mr. Priori mentioned that we had cut 114 positions. We also had a $1.1 million increase in the wages this year. So at this point, with the cost of personnel, it's not wise to bring them back. If we revised it, it could be a different story.
The next question will start with Mr. Kirksick. What personal experience and qualifications do you have with running the budget and finances of a large organization?
Large organization. Currently, I manage $7.5 million of revenue for the company that I work for. It is my responsibility to maintain that as a revenue stream. Now, in order to do that, there's obviously expenses involved with that. I do not control the expenses of the stream that I'm in charge of. I constantly have the balance of power of having to go to other managers within my organization who constantly question me about what I'm doing to spend money. Now, the role of a board is just that. It's oversight. The role of the board is to make sure that what the administration brings forward is in the best interest of students. If it's not in the best interest of students, if it doesn't actually provide a true benefit to a student, not a secondary benefit, then it's not in the interest of our school district. So if we look at the role of the different organizations, the administration, they're part of the schools. They're part of the personnel. It is their job to put forward a budget that meets their needs. It is the job of every board member to make sure that every dollar in that budget is scrutinized. Now, from what I've seen of past board discussions, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors between board members. There doesn't seem to be enough challenging conversation between board members and between the board and the administration in terms of what that budget is.
Do you want the question repeated?
No. I was a school principal for 10 years. My middle school was a national Blue Ribbon School of Excellence with over 600 students and 60 full-time teachers and 100 employees total. I also endured the first 4 years of the 6 years of the GEA environment. During that time, all employees were asked to come up with creative ways to save money. I found that experience valuable, and we strive to keep reductions away from the classroom. I will bring that experience to this position.
I bring a common sense approach to this board. You know, if it doesn't make sense, then you should question it. We have a budget that's going to rise $10 million over the next 5 years in the face of declining enrollment. Obviously, the people who supposedly have experience in this stuff don't understand that that's the opposite way of things should be going. And I intend to correct that and make the district flexible to current trends and needs.
As I stated in my opening, as a director of finance at Rich Products, I oversee $1.5 billion in annual spending, ranging from manufacturing plants, union contracts, healthcare, utility costs, et cetera. I could go on and on. But every year I'm responsible for establishing a 5- and 10-year strategic plan, an annual operating budget, and those conversations are very challenging and involve a lot of give and take, back and forth, and collaborative efforts, and it's the same approach I use with the school board here. One thing that I think is worth mentioning, in an environment whether it's a school system or a private sector, there are things called fixed costs and variable costs. One cannot just assume everything is 100% variable. When Rich Products doesn't make one case more than it made the year after, we don't cut a line. We have to still have that line operating to make the product that is demanded of us. It's no different in the classroom here. The enrollment declines that you have seen in the publications amount to less than one student per classroom in this district. We cannot cut anymore. Thank you.
Okay, the third question will start with Mr. Priori. Name, name 3 things you would do to improve Clarence School ranking.
The magazine Business First has been around from about 1992. They started doing the rankings, and for many years, Clarence was number 1. It slipped to number 2. The last few years, it slipped to number 3. It's a very complicated formula, but obviously, if we don't have the high-performing students in our AP classes and electives, it hurts us a lot. I look at the things that have been cut, and I'd like to slowly and smartly bring back those things so that we can be. But not just because Business First is there, but because we want to give the best education to our students in our community. This community deserves the very best schools, and that's what I would fight to have.
Is the question repeated?
No, thank you. I think people get a little carried away with Business First. It's a newspaper. You know, if they came out with the same list every year, they wouldn't sell any newspapers. I think people in Clarence need to focus on what's good for Clarence. And currently, the number 1 issue is the quality of the district being sacrificed. So I don't necessarily think there's 3 things that I would do. I think I could do one thing to improve the rank of Clarence on Business First. And that would be to move the funds that are going towards costs that don't necessarily benefit the students and bring back the curriculum, the sports, the music, the programs that have made Clarence at the top of the list. And the first thing that I would go for would be the personnel costs. They cause the budget to rise every year. They make up between 60 and 90% of every year's tax increase, and that's not fair. And we watch the administration hold those courses hostage. They tell the taxpayers and the residents that if you don't vote for this budget, those programs will be gone. And that's not right. And by doing that, we'll make Clarence number 1 again.
Well, with the Business First, the way I look at those metrics, and they are a little bit magical how they calculate them behind closed doors. It's almost like the APPR scoring system in New York. But they're made up of lagging and leading metrics. And we talk about the leading metrics and cost effectiveness and administrative efficiency and so forth. The overall ranking is a lagging metric. It is something that is accumulated over the course of an educational career of a student here in Clarence. And we've seen that ranking drop from 1 down to 3. So what would I do to improve that ranking? 3 simple things. 1, strive to restore the programs lost over the last 5 years. Continue to work to minimize the class sizes so our teachers have more time with each individual student, and create an environment where our teachers can leverage their skills to provide our students with the best education possible, free of the mandates in New York.
Mr. Kirksick?
The consensus is pretty across the board here that the Business First rankings are just that. They're magical rankings. I really don't care about the Business First rankings. I care about the students in our district. Are we enabling them to go forward and succeed in what they're doing? At one point in my college career, I decided I want to be an attorney. So I looked at the top law schools. Is there a difference between Harvard and Yale? Sometimes one's 1, one's 3. No, there's not. But where there is a difference is between Harvard and Yale in the top 20 schools and any Tier 4 schools. If you're going to a Tier 4 law school, in that case, yeah, maybe you might want to do something to increase your rankings. In our case, Clarence School District provides a pretty solid education for our students. I'm not going to worry about competing against Williamsville or Orchard Park, Grand Island, I'm not worried about that. Those students are those districts' problem. Their challenge. Not the students who are a problem, it's their challenge to make sure that they succeed. What I want to make sure is that each of your students and my 5 students in the district, that they succeed, that I put programs in place that benefit them, that I have chemistry labs that are equipped, that I spend more money on actual supplies for the district than I do on things that benefit teachers or other personnel within the district.
Question 4 is going to start with Mr. Lombardo. It's the same question has already been spoken. You can read it after if you want. It's the same one again. It's about the fiscal background of all of you again. I apologize. Important question, I guess. It's the same question. I'm not even kidding you. Gosh. Blank. There's been extensive research on the effect of class size on the quality of learning. What are your thoughts on this research? What do you consider a maximum size for quality learning?
Well, when I went to school, there was 20 to 25 kids in a class. I didn't feel that it was crowded. I don't know what research they're talking about, but I would say that anywhere between 20 and 25 kids in a class is more than acceptable.
Mr. Priori? Oh, I'm sorry, I went the wrong way.
As far as the maximum, I don't know if there's a good number for that. I'm sure there's many studies out there. I've read a few, and there's probably countless others that I haven't read. In the school system, in the Clarence School District, we have some guidelines established. At the lower elementary levels, no more than 22. At the higher elementary, no more than 25, and a little bit higher in the middle school and the high school. We are exceeding those in many sections currently. We had numerous sections of kindergarten this past year with 28 students. That is clearly unacceptable and cannot continue. I think the other thing to note is when compared to other districts and also compared to past history in Clarence and class sizes and effectiveness, we are doing it without the benefit of a lot of teacher aides, which we've eliminated basically anything that we haven't been mandated to provide over the last few years. So the hours, the minutes that each teacher has to spend with each student is being spread very thin, and it can't continue. Thank you.
So I don't know about your education through elementary school. Mine was one where we had 20 to 30 students in an elementary class, 0 teacher aides. Students did very well. According to our own published annual reports, our students overall are receiving a fantastic education. At the high school level, we're meeting standards at the 95% plus range for most students. Middle school is a little bit less. Not sure why that is. But quality education is not really based on class size. It's based on quality of those providing the education. Now, I can think of a couple of teachers in Clarence, particular calculus teacher, fantastic, provides the best education my daughter has ever received. She is fantastic in the results of her students. They are shown in how well she teaches. Her students score off the charts. It's a direct reflection of her teaching. Now, on the other hand, I know of other teachers in the high school, and maybe elsewhere in the district. The quality of education coming from these teachers is horrendous. If my student is spending days and days and weeks on end watching TV, I'm sorry, we don't pay movie attendants nearly $100,000 a year to show TV. So it's about the quality of education coming from the teachers, not coming from class size.
schools are being asked to do a lot more now than when I was in elementary school. There are students coming from all different types of families. There are mainstream students that weren't there years ago. There are students who are coming, learning English as a second language. If you might have 25 students in a class, but you might have several students that are mainstream, you might have several that you know, are below the standard. So you need to get down to an acceptable level. I know at Kenton, and I know here in Clarence, we had numbers that we tried to keep track of, but over the last 6 years, once again, because of the GEA, we had to exceed those. I think in the elementary level, you should have in the low 20s, middle and high school a little higher. But remember, smaller class sizes have been shown time and time again to be effective. It is critically important, especially in the elementary grades, that there are smaller sizes. And realize our students only go through each school one time. We need to give them the best education possible.
Next question will start with Mr. Fuchs. The district is in the top 5% across New York State in administrative efficiency and cost effectiveness. It offers one of the lowest full value tax rates per pupil spending, yet they achieve academic success in the top percentile. How would you as a board member maintain these unprecedented levels of excellence?
I think there's a little bit of overlap to a prior question, but again, I think over the last few years, the district has been very reflective in the challenge of all of the fiscal restraint in New York State, the revenue challenges, and eliminating multiple positions that have driven those scores or the rankings up higher. We've eliminated a director of technology, director of curriculum. There was a communications associate in the central offices. All of those are gone. Principals are manning buildings by themselves without assistance, and that is driving those rankings high. I don't think we can add back in those areas, and I don't think it would be prudent to do so. I think the effective thing to do would be to take any revenue that we're able to reallocate or restore from New York State and apply it in the classroom so that we can drive the actual ranking and scoring of our students, and while maintaining the lower efficiency rankings in Western New York. Thank you.
Repeat the verbiage of the question, please.
The district is in the top 5% across New York State in administrative efficiency and cost effectiveness. It offers one of the lowest full value tax rates per pupil spending, yet they achieve academic success in the top percentile. How would you as a board member maintain these unprecedented levels of excellence?
All right, so the question's a bit misleading. It's referring with tax rates, and it's referring the actual tax rate to administrative costs. Now, those are dollars per pupil spending compared to an overall tax rate. Those numbers don't even correlate, generally speaking. Now, if you're a person that's values your actual, if you're a person that values your tax rate, meaning I'm proud that Clarence is $14.5 per thousand, then you can't really truly compare that to many other areas, because we don't all, other than Clarence and Lancaster, we don't share an assessor with anybody. So, for instance, Orchard Park, fantastic set of schools there as well, top schools according to Business First. They have a little bit higher tax rate, but when you compare their full value assessments for the same homes that we live here in Clarence, they're probably between 60 and 70% is the value of the house that they're assessed on versus what you're assessed on your house. So we can't compare those two things. Now, what we can compare is dollars spent per pupil. Now, if we're proud of the fact that we're saying we're spending the least amount and we're spending $15,000 or more, then in order to improve that ranking, let's make that number smaller. Or let's take those same dollars that come from the state and let's truly spend them on the students. Let's buy more technology equipment. Let's buy more classroom things. Let's give teachers a budget to actually have supplies more than just $250. If you actually look through the budget, what each individual teacher gets for supplies is very minuscule.
Mr. Kirksick, your time is up.
I don't have a problem with the question, but I will say that I don't think we can cut administrators any further. I look at, and I know firsthand the way they've worked so hard, and I'm very concerned now with the new state APPR that we're gonna be pulling principals out of our buildings to go to other buildings and leaving them uncovered, and I'm really concerned about that. We are very fortunate that we are that efficient, but I wouldn't cut it any further, and I would support our administrators. They are working their tails off just like our teachers are.
I wouldn't consider us very efficient when our budget is forced to rise $2 million every year. You know, we can compare ourselves with other school districts in New York State, but we're really need to compare ourselves outside of New York State to the places where people are leaving New York to go to. There's lots of ways that we can make ourselves more efficient. We can have our personnel contribute more to their health insurance. We can have our personnel contribute to their retirements. We can have, go through line item budgets where we're spending $125,000 on a water heater for the maintenance building. I don't think we're running an efficient district. You know, that's the bottom line to it. The district offers zero copay health insurance for their teachers. That's one way we could save hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we need to stop comparing ourselves with New York and get on the national level so that we can be more efficient.
Next question will start with Mr. Kirksick. Some have accused the district of paying for luxuries. Do you agree? If so, what luxuries have you identified for abolition?
Mr. Lombardo brings up the largest luxury that district pays for, something that I have not seen anywhere else in any corporation nearly in the United States, and that is nearly free health care. I sat in a meeting this morning with some people from the administration because I wanted to better understand. Mr. Lombardo made some claims. I wanted to better understand what are the health care options that our personnel have, not only teachers but administrators. Most people in any job would almost quit their job just to gain the health care available from the district. They have what is essentially a 100-0 plan. For their top health care package, they pay $1,497 a year, and what they get is, other than a $15 copay to go to any doctor, whether it's a brain surgeon or a pediatrician, and a $5 or $10 copay for medicines, they have zero cost to health care. That is a luxury. Whether or not other districts offer that, that is a luxury that should be brought in line with the rest of America, the hardworking citizens of this city, this town, that don't have such luxury.
Having been a parent of school-aged children in this district for the past 14 years and previously working as an administrator and teacher in the area school districts, I can tell you the luxuries are all gone. They're not there. We've cut to the bone, and we need to rebuild, and I will work to get those programs back.
Well, I think there's two kinds of luxuries here. Number one is contained within the personnel costs. You know, if you're paying somebody, a teacher, a top-tier teacher, $90,000 a year, which is almost double the median individual income of the town of Clarence, and then giving that person a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year pension and 90% compensated health insurance, that is a luxury, and it's taking away from the students and the students' opportunities. There's a lot of greed. The other luxury happened back in November with AstroTurf. The district had the option to restore these 11 positions through a bond proposition, which it's not the greatest idea to bond money to pay for teachers, but they could have had that option, and it was pretty much the same amount of money. They chose to put AstroTurf ahead of restoring these 11 positions, which were supposedly much needed. We didn't hear about these 11 positions until the state decided to give Clarence an extra $1 million in state aid just before the April budget session.
I guess for starters, I would concur with Mr. Priori. All the luxuries are gone. While someone could comb through the hundreds of lines in a budget and point to a dollar that they don't think should be spent, I'll give them that benefit of the doubt. But as far as big ticket items, luxuries have been removed long ago. I just want to talk about the perception that some members of the community have relative to the healthcare costs. Independent of everything else, I would agree. It looks like a luxury. However, as I look at my compensation in the private sector as well, it's total rewards. It's the salary I make. It's the retirement that I have my company contributing for. It is the healthcare cost. Overall, there's a total rewards. And I think it's a disservice to talk about one piece of the pie without talking about the whole pie. If you have a problem with, if you perceive teacher salaries in total as a luxury, I beg to differ. I disagree with you. I think as a society, we should put a greater emphasis on our educators as far as how they rank in the pecking order. Thank you.
Question 7, we'll start with Mr. Priori. Did you support the 9.8% increase proposed 2 years ago?
That was a difficult thing, and I debated that for several months. But I looked at the education our children were getting, and I looked at also in the last 8 years how the tax rate and the budget had gone up an average of 1.5%. And I saw it as a one-year time to get things back in line. Now, a lot of people didn't like that. When I went door to door talking to people, they asked me about that, and I would explain to them why I did support it. If we had, you can't turn back the clock, but if we had, instead of, spending all the fund balance over the years, we would have had that and a lot more. We also would have had a lot more if it wasn't for the gap elimination adjustment. So yes, I did.
I did not support the 9.8% increase. When you look at the expenses and how the money is spent and distributed, it's not fair to raise taxes for the people of this town. I will not support a budget in the foreseeable future with a tax increase. We're the highest tax state in the country. We don't need any more taxes. Raising taxes 1 cent is sending this state in the wrong direction.
Well, being the only individual up here who was on the board at the time, I think everybody knows I did support the 9.8%. One thing to note, and just to provide a little context, I ran for the board 3 years ago because I was, like a lot of people in the community, looking at the tax rate going down and remaining flat and questioning how this could be. And I dug into the numbers and saw the use of fund balance and was concerned about the sustainability aspect of this. The second meeting I had as a member of the Board of Education, I was made aware that our budget for the following year would require a 16.1% increase if we did nothing. So, as a board, we challenged the district to cut to the bone to the extent that we thought was prudent to get it down to 9.8. I wish we could have done more in good conscience. I didn't feel comfortable going further. The budget was presented to the community. The community needs to decide whether that type of structural change was going to happen in the district, and obviously we know what happened, but I did support the 9.8%.
So I was not a resident of Clarence at the time of the 2013 budget vote. I have done a lot of research. I have read every annual report that I could find published on the internet, which is by, I believe, 12 years of annual reports. I was in the area at the time. I was familiar with the citizen uproar in the community about 9.8%. At the time of 9.8%, if you go back to that annual report, it says, "We, the board, are confident that if we charge you 9.8% this year, that we can keep our costs projected for the next 3 years to 2.9, 2.8, no, 2.9, 2.9, and 2.8%. That budget failed. They asked people to get down to the level needed. They restored, other than sports programs, they didn't restore a whole lot the following year. And the budget wasn't at 2.9%, it was at 3.6%. Since then, they have continued to give 5-year projections. Their new 5-year projection is 3.5%, 3.5%, 3.5%, only to pay for what they see today. The overall budget has to be in line with your projected expenses. You can't just assume that the money's going to come from somewhere else. So no, I would have never supported a 9.8% increase.
Mr. Lombardo, you'll start the next question. If the school district is faced with a situation where they are out of compliance, how would this influence your decisions regarding the formation and approval of a budget?
Well, I guess it would have to depend what they're out of compliance for. It's kind of a vague question. I really don't know how to answer that type of question without, it's way too generalized and vague. That's my answer.
I guess I struggle to address that question as it's stated. What I will say, every year when the budget's developed, obviously Dr. Hicks and Mr. Mancuso are well-versed in state law. They've been on the job for many years and are a great sounding board as far as what is legal, what is not, what is current New York State statute and the boundaries which we have to operate under. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question again?
I will, and I think we're
Just
going to
because there was
one additional question.
Yeah, there was some
after
confusion
Mr.
as to what people are saying they don't want to answer, so I'm trying to figure out
If
what
the school
question is.
district is faced with a situation where they're out of compliance, how would this influence your decisions regarding the formation and approval of a budget?
So that is a good question. If it's something that it is a mandate that we are breaking the law, not funding, then we should be in compliance. Now, does that mean we just hire more people and spend more money? No. That means we go somewhere that we're not breaking the law by meeting a mandate and funding something, and we take that program and money away and we put it to the place that is absolutely necessary. Some candidates have talked about meeting the unfunded mandates of the state. Now, if we're breaking the law on those mandates, then definitely, let's fund those. At the same time, there are things that come from the state that we cannot, as a board, really effectually change. The gap elimination adjustment. We can cry all we want that over the last few years, $16 million hasn't been given to us because they changed the formula of how they give out money based on the overall, let's say, prosperity of a community. So now the state has changed their formula where they're sending more money to areas of disadvantage. In the studies that I've read, in talking about does spending more money on education pay off, it only pays off in areas where it's disparity and low income. Spending more money on education in areas that are prosperous does not pay off. It does not lead results because your students are already performing so well. The marginal cost to increase is almost unattainable.
The question is a little open-ended, but if you are not in compliance, you have to be in compliance, or the state will come down and make sure you do. I will just say this, over the years, I have seen a lot of people who run for school boards and say, when I get on there, I'm gonna cut this, I'm gonna cut that, I'm gonna do this, do that. They get in there and they realize that about 95% is state mandated. It's talk is cheap, but you gotta be in compliance, and if not, they'll catch you.
Mr. Lombardo, we're going to start with you again and pull another question. Is that
Okay.
okay? What is the most critical academic program at Clarence Central School District, and why? And what is the least critical, and why?
Well, that would really depend on the student. That's on a case-by-case basis. You can't say that one particular program or course is more important than the other. It depends on the direction that the student wants to take. And it's the same goes for least important. I would support any courses that have enough students to fulfill those. Obviously, if you're talking about least important courses, you can't go and fund courses that only have 1 or 2 students in. So you have to find the courses that are of interest to the most students and build those courses to suit each student's needs.
Mr. Fuchs?
A difficult question to answer. I would concur with Mr. Lombardo. Depending on the student, the ranking order of what is critical to that student is much different. Music program versus drama versus the arts versus Project Lead the Way. Any number of them could rise to the top for any student. But at its core, obviously, English, ELA, math, social studies are the core, and they need to be staffed appropriately. I'm happy to see that we're adding some sections of teachers back into those core areas to augment the current staff. Thank you.
So in terms of core courses, I believe that a core, well-rounded education is the main objective of any school district. Now, I will say that there are programs for some special needs cases and students of this nature that are just as equally as important. So science, math, English, history, you're never going to cut the basics in those courses. An introduction to the arts, music, sports, you shouldn't cut those, an introduction. Now, with only a high school population next year projected of 1,467 students, we can't offer everything that a 30,000 student university is going to offer. I want my students, my own kids, when they're in school, I want them to do well on college entrance exams. I am very proud of my daughter. My daughter scored exceptionally well on the entrance exams from the education she's received. They don't ask questions on these entrance exams based on coursework that is outside of these common core fundamental subjects of English, science, math, and history. So if there's something we can't afford, we should cut that, and we should stick with the basics of what students need to go forward and then gain a more broad college education.
It's a difficult question to answer. It's like asking a parent, who's your favorite child? They're all our favorite child, you know? But I've been very pleased as I sit at board meetings and as I've been visiting the high school especially. I'm proud of our core courses. I'm proud of our AP courses. I'm proud of the musicals, mock trial, athletics, our student athletes, Project Lead the Way. Even if you just come to the board meeting, every month you see some of the top students that are featured, and it's a pleasure to be there. And I'm looking forward to, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, to tour the schools and see more of it firsthand. We've got a lot of good things, and I'm very proud of the schools, and I'm proud to be in this community.
Next question, we're back to start with Mr. Fuchs. Get a new one. Do you have children that currently attend or did attend Clarence schools? If so, which schools did they attend and how long?
Currently have 2 daughters in the school system. A daughter who is in the middle school right now, came up through Sheridan Hill and will be attending the high school as a freshman next year. And my youngest daughter is a 4th grader at Sheridan Hill.
So my daughter McKay is 16. She is a high school student here at Clarence High School. My daughter Kirsten attends middle school. She loves chorus. It's one of her favorite classes. She does exceptionally well in science and math as well. I think all students can do well in common subjects. I have a son, Cruz. He's in Ledgeview Elementary. A daughter, Catania, who's in Ledgeview Elementary. And I have a daughter, Kiel, who is turning 2 in June. She's not in any of these schools yet. And you may wonder how I have a 2-year-old and a 9-year-old. It's because as a young person, I thought, you know what, wouldn't it be fantastic if I just was retired at 55, and then I don't need any kids at home anymore. And I quickly recognized that the majority of the world does not retire at 55. And when I finally recognized that I'm not retiring at 55, I wanted more children at home. So my wife and I decided to have another child. That is another luxury that's in our school budgets. Now, I recognize that these costs are contractual. We can't change them. They don't change overnight. The Buffalo School District, they haven't had a contract in 10 years. Yet all of the people that I know and people that I work with that have spouses that work in the Buffalo School District, they don't leave their jobs because it's still the market value of their job. If you were to look at attrition rates, my time's up.
We have two daughters, Maria and Elizabeth, both went through Sheridan Hill all the way through and the middle school. Maria graduated from Clarence High School 2 years ago. She's going to be a junior at Geneseo next year. Elizabeth is going to be a senior now. She'll graduate in a couple months, or less actually. We're very proud of the education they've received, and I'm looking forward to giving back to the school system, serving on the Board of Education.
I don't have any children, but I do want to stay in the town. I want to have a life here in the future. I'm here to represent the farthest reach to the future that any board member has. I think that, I'm the least developed in terms of having a family, but my prospect to the future is, I think, farther reaching than any other board member, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, this will be the last question, and it's going to start with Mr. Kirksick. Sorry, there's a lot of repeat questions. Class size? In the past 2 months, excluding school board meetings and budget meetings, what Clarence School District events have you attended to support the students of the district?
So my daughter McKay ran cross country. I attended nearly every meet of the cross country meet, whether it was at home or away. Got to know her cross country teammates. I love to cheer them on. You might see pictures floating around of me holding up a big, huge sign, cheering on my daughter McKay and her friend Emma. My daughter is also, my younger daughter, Kirsten, she is in the chorus groups in the middle school. I attend every concert. My children and my family are my biggest priority. My work schedule is such that it's flexible. I can meet those needs. Now, when it comes to wanting to tour the school or get access to things and move forward, I have come a number of occasions over the last 2 months and sat with Mr. Mancuso and Dr. Hicks, spoken with them to get the facts directly from them. Not that I'm wanting to distribute facts that are skewed or facts that aren't necessarily true. The best source for that is going directly to that source of information and asking them directly. And I've been very pleased with some things about our administration. They're very transparent if you ask, but at the same time, a little bit causes me for concern is that some people are up in arms about what the teachers pay for health care when the administration pays 75% less than that. So I'm committed to the school district, I'm committed to attending functions, and I'm committed to representing and helping the citizens of Clarence.
It seems at times that we're here once a week, and I couldn't be happier. We've been very fortunate. Our daughters have been in the musicals and the chorus groups. I've attended sporting events, concerts. I volunteered a lot of PTO meetings. My wife and I wonders why they go out on the first Friday in February for the sleep out when it's below zero, but it's a great thing to see those kids do that. I'm happy to support them. We've got a great school system. I love being here as much as I can.
I sat in these schools for 13 years. I needed to take some time off, and now I'm back.
I think as the three fathers at the table here, my schedule is kind of following my daughters around. My girls are dancers, so they're not into any of the athletic programs in the district, so I'm not attending the athletic events, but I am at their dance studio with them multiple times a week and have the luxury to visit with many Clarence parents who also have students in the dance studio. In addition, they both participate in the music program. My youngest daughter in orchestra and my oldest daughter in band, and I frequently attend those concerts. We had a band concert not too long ago, and we have an orchestra concert here on Thursday. In addition, I enjoy attending the middle school plays where my daughter attends school. I'm very proud of our students and amazed at the talent level of the students demonstrated at such a young age.
Now we are ready for our closing statements. We will do it in reverse order, so we will start with Mr. Lombardo, and once again, you will each have 2 minutes.
Okay. You know, people that take my position are called anti-school, anti-education, anti-tax, anti-teacher. You know, the people that don't care about the school system are the ones that have packed their things up and left. I think that my candidacy for the board shows a position of preservation, shows a dedication to the quality of the schools, not a destructive one. This race, running for school board, is not easy. It's the first thing that I think of when I wake up in the morning. It's the last thing that I do before I go to bed. It would be a lot easier to remain silent and basically put my head in the sand. But I'm determined to make sure that there's a balance of power between administrators and taxpayers, and that's the job of the school board. I read in the code of conduct for the school board that the school board gets its power from the state. I really disagree with that. The power of the school board comes from the people, not the state. The people are to make all the decisions for the schools. And I feel that there's a lot of derelict of duty within the school board to represent the people, whether it be taxpayers, residents, parents, and really meet their needs instead of saying, well, it's Albany's fault, there's nothing we can do. And I will lead the school board to be a leader in representing the people instead of telling the residents of this town what Albany and Washington want them to do.
Thank you. Mr. Fuchs?
Now that you know where each of us stands on the issues, let me provide some clarity. In my opening statement, I told you to be listening for facts and fears, and because of time constraints, I'll only review 3 of them now. The fear is believing the rhetoric that this budget is unsustainable and electing board members who've done nothing to fight the Gap Elimination Adjustment, or GEA. They know we have cut 110 positions and a number of programs in the last 6 years, and they think things are fine. The facts are things are not fine. We've lost too many good programs and classes over the past 6 years. This budget is sustainable. It begins to just barely restore about 10% of the positions cut, and some of these are mandated by state law. During that time, New York State has balanced their budget on your backs in the name of the GEA. That has taken away $18 million from Clarence. The fear is that we do not need new buses. We can keep them in service nearly forever, and it will cost less. Keep fixing them, and they will be fine. The facts are we have buses that are 10 to 14 years old, have close to 200,000 miles, are rusting out and breaking down often. To get back to a cycle that replaces these buses regularly makes sense. We'll borrow at 1% interest, get back 70% in state funding. Keep fixing them, and you'll pay the full cost locally. And finally, the fear is that you must respect the taxpayer and elect two candidates. It is also a fear that you mistake them for taxpayers. The facts are only two of us are taxpayers, Mike Fuse and I, because we own homes and we are taxpayers in this district. You know, I'm proud of the many things I've accomplished during my career, but I would consider the opportunity to represent you on the Clarence School Board to be the pinnacle of my career. I will not be a rubber stamp. I will study every issue that comes before me. I will also challenge my fellow board members, and they will challenge me. And that's how we will get things done. I humbly ask for your vote next Tuesday because great schools matter. Thank you.
Please hold your applause to the end. Mr. Kirksick?
So I would love to represent the average Clarence citizen. It's really hard to figure out what is the average home value in Clarence. I deconstructed the entire tax roll. I recreated their database on my computer. I did all the analysis, and the average home in Clarence before the most recent increase was $207,000. Controlling a finance department of $1.5 billion company and trying to compare your salary and your total compensation package to the average taxpayer in Clarence, that doesn't ring true with most taxpayers. Now, the other thing that I want to bring up is any viable corporation puts members on its board that bring diversity to its board. They don't bring the choir to sing to them. They don't bring those with conflict of interests. If Dr. Hicks tried to get his wife on the board, we'd be in an outrage. It's great that Mr. Priori is a prior administrator. We already have an administrator. It's great that Mr. Fuchs makes fantastic money and has a wife that teaches school as well. That's great. But we need somebody to represent the interests of the average taxpayer in our community. And if you have questions for me individually, please reach out to me directly. I would be happy to have a conversation with you for as long as you would like to know about me and my views. I'd be happy to share. But what I want to do is protect what is best for students, not what is best for administrators, not what is best for teachers. My students never come home and say, "Dad, our school sucks because we don't have a librarian." No, they don't. What they want is more field trips. What they want is more activities. They don't want luxuries for teachers. They don't want these things. So if you have a mind of that set, please vote for me.
In closing, I would like to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedules to learn more about the 4 candidates running for the Board of Education. I think it is critical that we as a society become more informed voters and do not succumb to the headline messaging that has become a staple of today's campaigns. Life moves fast, we are all busy, and as such, we crave the headlines. As I have learned over the last 3 years, headlines are very dangerous as they attempt to sway opinion with a simple number, word, or percent. The reality is we live in a very complex world where every headline has a story behind it. Hopefully you found some answers to that story this evening. A couple of points I want to make and highlight some things that were talked about or things that were not addressed relative to the tax increase that's before the voters next Tuesday, the 3.8% levy increase. $3 million is going to be saved by refinancing bond debt. That accounts for 1.75% of the 3.8. So roughly, the ask of the community to support the ongoing inflationary increases in the district is roughly 2%. People like to point out 10 years of history, 15 years of history, and what the growth rate is. I can pick 2, 3, 5 other data points that share different opinions. If we want to look more in the near term, because as it's been pointed out, the world is evolving and we need to evolve. Over the last 5 years, the average spending in this district has increased 0.6%. That compares with the national inflation over the last 5 years of 2% on average. Enrollment is down. It is going down, but it is not projected to continue to go down for the 10-year period as mentioned earlier. The class sizes will not be reduced significantly enough to impact teaching sections, and I think it is prudent to add back teaching positions. It is sustainable. 2.6% spending increase over the 5-year horizon is a sustainable figure. And in the end, we are in a service business. Costs do go up every year.
Thank you to all of our candidates. Good luck to you all as well. Tonight's event is over. Please drive home safely.